chamber to the people. Let the voices ring. Laws are made. Debates take the wing.
I know we are going to be reposed with responsibilities.
Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Watch the Senate and the House of Representatives, where decisions flow. The Parliament, the place to know. The Parliament, see power at play. The Parliament, your window into democracy at work, only on Global Television. Hello and welcome to your parliamentary program, The Parliament, which deliberates on legislative policies from the chambers of the National Assembly to the voices shaping Nigeria's democratic journey. Welcome once again. I am Anieti Patrick. Each week, we bring you the latest decisions, debates, and developments from the heart of the legislature, the bills shaping national policy, the motions addressing citizens' concerns, and the oversight actions holding the government accountable. On this edition of the program, we start from the National Assembly's leaders' message to Nigerians during the Easter celebration as the lawmakers were on the Easter break. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, assured Nigerians that the country will overcome insecurity, stressing that the federal government remains committed to tackling terrorism and restoring peace across affected states. Delivering his Easter message, he urged citizens to embrace tolerance, unity, and peaceful coexistence while acknowledging ongoing security challenges in parts of the country. Akpabio maintained that sustained efforts by President Bola Tinubu and security agencies combined with collective support from Nigerians will ultimately bring stability despite recent killings reported in states including Kwara, Nasarawa, and Plateau states. In the same vein, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajudeen Abbas, has urged Nigerians, Christians to emulate the teachings of Jesus Christ as they celebrate Easter. In a message marking the end of Lent, the Speaker called on the faithful to remain steadfast in prayers for Nigeria and the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, noting that divine intervention remains key to addressing national challenges. Speaker Abbas described Easter as a season that reflects sacrifice, love, and selflessness, urging Nigerians to imbibe these virtues for national peace and stability. He also emphasized the needs for religious harmony, describing the overlap of Ramadan and Lent as a unique opportunity to strengthen unity among citizens across faiths and ethnic lines. In a similar message, the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, called on Nigerians to embrace hope, unity, and humility. He encouraged citizens to support one another, extend kindness to the vulnerable, and remain committed to collective national development, while reaffirming the National Assembly's resolve to promote inclusive policies and sustainable growth. Nigeria's production rebound has received a major boost as the National Assembly passes a vote of confidence on key players, crediting coordinated security efforts and pipeline surveillance contracts for pushing output to 1.8 million barrels per day. The announcements came at a one-day conference on pipeline security and crude oil theft, where Parliament also dismissed 3 petitions challenging pipeline surveillance contracts. The National Assembly has passed a vote of confidence on Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, and other security agencies for their role in restoring the nation's oil production. In recent weeks, calls for the decentralization of these contracts have gained attention. The conference brought together leading stakeholders to address these agitations, although the petitioners were notably absent.
The General Committee knows that the petition was not received through common militants for peace and unity in the United Delta, for urgent demand for immediate decentralization, transparency, and competitive procurement in the surveillance process. The petitioners were duly invited on multiple occasions to appear before the Joint Committee to defend and substantiate the allegations contained in their petition, despite this repeated and formal invitations, including invitations to appear before the Joint Committee today. The petitioners were to appear on every occasion.
During the conference, representatives from NNPCL, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, Tantita Security Services, and other security agencies, including the Nigeria Police Force, highlighted the progress made. They noted that Nigeria's oil production, which had dropped to about 960,000 barrels per day in August 2024 due to the theft and sabotage, has now significantly improved.
While significant ground has been recovered, we must be clear-eyed. The war for energy security is not over. As Nigeria experiences heightened global geopolitical tension that continue to exert upward pressure on crude oil price, the incentive for crude theft, illegal refinery, and associated criminality persists. Any relaxation of focus or fragmentation of our current collaboration could reopen vulnerabilities within the energy security ecosystem. Accordingly, I urge all our stakeholders, legislative, executive, security, regulatory, industry, and community leaders to sustain and institutionalize the collaborative framework.
The pipeline vandalism incidents have dropped by over 40% compared to what we had in the past years. Secondly, we have discovered and destroyed 60% more illegal refining sites, which means we are detecting more and disrupting more. The Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps is already mapping out strategy to achieve the 3 million barrels per day towards 2030 as anticipated by the Renewed Hope agenda.
In 2020, Nigeria was producing about 1.8. At 2021, it was about 1.6. Then in 2022, it dropped to 1.1, including condensate. Then we awarded the contract in August, and we started. Today, we're at about 1.4, including condensate, and we can still do better.
At the conclusion of the conference, a joint committee moved and passed a vote of confidence on all efforts to safeguard the nation's crude oil production and curb oil thefts.
Illegal connections to solar and dismantled have increased by over 300%. Volumes lost to theft have dropped from a peak of over 400,000 barrels per day to under 100,000 barrels per day.
The federal government's introduction of pipeline surveillance contracts, including the engagement of private security firms and community-based structures, has been credited for this turnaround. Today, the nation reportedly produces 1.8 million barrels of crude oil per day, a significant improvement over previous years. The House of Representatives has launched a sweeping probe into the performance of concessionaires operating Nigeria's air and seaport terminals, demanding transparency, accountability, and value for money nearly 2 decades after the policy began. The investigation, led by the chairman of the ad hoc committee, Kolawole Akinlayo, opened at the National Assembly in Abuja, marking a critical phase in the lawmakers' oversight of the 2006 port concession regime. The policy, introduced to boost efficiency, attract private investments, and improve infrastructure in Nigeria's aviation and maritime sectors, is now under intense scrutiny. Addressing stakeholders at the hearing, Chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee, Kolawole Akinlayo, said the committee's mandate is clear: to assess performance, identify gaps, and determine whether Nigerians have truly benefited from concessions. He urged operators to provide factual and verifiable data on their investments, operations, and compliance, warning that the credibility of their submissions will shape the committee's final recommendations.
The fees that is meant to the federation that are not paid to federation, that is the only area we have grounds. And that is why we are calling you to answer to your your activities in office.
Meanwhile, officials from the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency say there have been notable gains. Also at the hearing, the Director of Ports and Cargo and Terminal NIMASA, Olayiwola Olaruwaju, told the committee that operators have surpassed some initial targets, expanding equipment capacity and investing heavily in infrastructure. According to him, truck deployment has risen from an initial requirement of 20 to about 125, alongside upgrades in cargo handling systems, IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and human capital development.
When you talk about the value of the equipment we have on ground, we're talking about $88.7 million.
Despite these improvements, lawmakers insist the probe will determine whether such investments translate into real economic value for the country. The committee is expected to continue engagement with key stakeholders as it compiles a comprehensive report on the impact of port concessions on Nigeria's economy. The Nigerian Port Authority is projecting a total revenue of 1.489 trillion naira for the 2026 fiscal year, an increase of 21 billion naira above its 2025 target. Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer Dr. Abubakar Dansoho disclosed this while presenting the agency's 2026 budget proposal and 2025 performance before the House of Representatives Committee on Ports and Harbors. Nigeria's port sector is setting an ambitious revenue target for 2026 as the Nigeria Ports Authority rolls out major modernization plans for key facilities. Out of the proposed figure, 945 billion naira is earmarked for capital projects, 447.5 billion for operational costs, while over 90 billion naira is expected to be remitted into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Despite a 2025 target of 1.468 trillion naira, the agency recorded about 1.19 trillion in actual revenue.
On the long term, we need to have natural deep sea ports in Nigeria, and government has approved. Some of these approvals have been around for like 10 years. But for the proponents, the promoters, for them to generate the kind of goodwill to bring in the money is not happening. So the House can even help us if you can promote some private sector people to come and invest.
The NPA says it is now set to begin longer-awaited modernization of Apapa and Tinkan Island ports, two of Nigeria's busiest but aging port facilities. Dr. Dantosho noted that Apapa Port is nearly 100 years old, while Tinkan Island Port is over 50, both struggling with limited capacity for modern shipping demands. He added that the construction activities in Lagos Port may temporarily divert traffic to eastern ports, potentially driving economic activity across other regions.
The federal government has committed to doing it in phases. We are starting the phase 1, like you say, you have given the approval for the loan. It will start in NS, then the eastern ports will follow as soon as possible.
Chairman of the committee, Nolim Naji, described the budget process as critical to national development. assuring that the committee will intensify oversight over port operations and ongoing rehabilitation efforts.
Yes, it's important that we are doing port rehabilitation, but you have to go back to think of how to take one of the ports in the Eastern Corridor so that people won't feel bad.
Groundbreaking for their rehabilitation is expected within weeks, a move expected to boost efficiency and increase national revenue. With modernization on the horizon and higher revenue targets in sight, stakeholders say the success of these reforms could redefine Nigeria's competitiveness in global maritime trade. The Maritime Academy of Nigeria has projected over 24 billion naira in revenue for the 2026 fiscal year. Acting Rector Dr. Kelvin Okona made the disclosure during a budget defense session before the House of Representatives Committee on Maritime Safety, Education and Administration. Giving a breakdown of the expected revenue, he explained that after statutory deductions to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, the Academy expects a net revenue of nearly 24 billion naira, with major inflows from the 5% statutory funds of Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, student fees, and other internal sources. On expenditure, the institution plans to commit the bulk of its budget to capital projects, overhead costs, and personnel emoluments, matching its total projected revenue. The rector also highlighted recent achievements, including international certifications, improved power supply, and increased cadet placements through partnerships with NLNG Shipping and Marine Services Limited.
This issue, fortunately for us, when we went for the defense at the Senate Committee on Marine Transport, we were sitting side by side with NIMASA. So we presented the same, and the senators asked the same question. We never know what, we have never got information on what NIMASA is budgeting.
So how do you?
So from here and there, we put a budgetary projection. But the matter was also brought to the fore, and NIMASA promised that subsequently they will give us information on what they are budgeting.
Chairman of the committee, Khadija Bukar Ibrahim, described the academy as critical to Nigeria's maritime growth, while urging transparency, accountability, and strategic spending. She stressed that budget allocations must translate into visible improvements as lawmakers work to reposition the institution into a globally competitive maritime training hub. As conversations continue, lawmakers push for transparency, seek world-class maritime academy for maritime sector growth. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, is calling for a unified approach to fast-track the creation of an additional state in the Southeast. He says collaboration, not division, will determine the success. Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the House Committee on Constitution Review, Benjamin Kalu, is proposing a merger of ongoing agitations for Anim and Anioma states into a single unified entity, Animoma. He made the call while receiving stakeholders of the Anioma state movement, stressing that state creation requires broad-based consensus and cannot be achieved in isolation. Kalu emphasized the critical role of governors and key stakeholders across both the Southeast and South-South regions, noting that legislative backing alone is not enough.
Who is joining us? Why should they join us? I've heard you talk about where the capital will be and where the capital will not be. That one is political. So we look at political element, we look at geographical element, we look at economic resourcefulness of that particular step that we want to take. We look at our history, our heritage.
The Deputy Speaker urged proponents of separate state demands to embrace compromise, warning that disunity could stall process. He added that negotiations must also determine key issues such as the proposed state capital, insisting that dialogue and democratic agreements remain essential. Kalu reaffirmed the National Assembly's commitment to addressing the long-standing demand for an additional Southeast state, describing it as both achievable and necessary if stakeholders act with urgency and unity.
For me, if you ask me what I want, what I will propose, I'll propose what will reflect the core indicators that we should look at in creating states: geographical location, geographical spread, the history of the people, the heritage of the people, viability.
Leader of the delegation, Senator Ned Nwoko, said the visit was to appreciate the Deputy Speaker's support, while traditional leaders described the Anyoma agitation as a long overdue effort to affirm identity and inclusion.
We are here as the people of Anyoma. Anyoma people are Ndigo. As far as we are concerned, Igbo, and they have come to express their support towards the creation of Anyoma state.
As calls for equity and restructuring grow louder, the push for an additional Southeast state now hangs on one message: unity or nothing. The Nigerian Senate has approved additional external borrowing of $5 billion from First Abu Dhabi Bank and another £1 billion from United Kingdom Export Finance. The approval followed a request by President Bola Tinubu, which was read on the floor of the Red Chamber. Also, the Senate at the same plenary extended the expiry dates of the capital components of the 2025 budget from 31st March 2026 to 30th June 2026.
The presidential correspondence read on the floor of the Senate on Tuesday from President Bola Tinubu explained that the external borrowing is aimed at supporting budget implementation and critical infrastructure upgrades. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, who read the communication, said while the $5 billion is intended to plug financing gaps in the 2026 budget, the £1 billion will be deployed for the rehabilitation of Lagos ports.
The establishment of a structured total return swap TRS external financing program of up to USD 5 billion with First Abu Dhabi Bank. Those in support say aye, those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Also at plenary, the Senate extended the expiry dates of the 2025 budget from 31st March 2026 to 30th June 2026. Presenting the bill before the Senate, Majority Leader Okpeyemi Bamidele and Deputy President of the Senate, Jibrin Barau, said the extension became necessary to enable the completion of ongoing capital projects across the country.
This situation, if not urgently addressed, risks exacerbating the already troubling incidents of abandoned or partially executed projects across the country.
It's very, very important that time should be given so that the projects that have been started, that are ongoing, be concluded. Otherwise, we'll go into the problem of abandoned projects, which is inimical to our progress.
With lawmakers backing fresh external financing and granting more time for capital spending, the move signals government's push to bridge funding gaps and fast-track key infrastructure projects nationwide.
The president's nominee for the Director General National Anti-Doping Center noted that global sporting standards now require countries to maintain credible anti-doping mechanisms, warning that failure to comply could expose athletes and national teams to sanctions.
The United Nations decided through UNICEF that a collaboration would be necessary with the International Olympic Committee to stem the tide of cheating in sports.
Also speaking, Director General of the National Institute of Sports, Philip Shoaibu stressed the need for stronger collaboration among stakeholders across the sports ecosystem to reposition Nigerian sports for global competitiveness. He said revitalizing the sector would require coordinated institutional efforts and sustained policy implementation aligned with national development objectives.
For the vision of the president and the vision of Nigeria in sport, for us to actually occupy the space that we need to occupy in sport, those that he has appointed, from the chairman of Sport Commission to the DG of NIS, DG of Sport Commission, and the Federation have to work together.
Chairman, Senate Committee on Sports, Senator Abdul Ningi, said Nigeria must prioritize competent leadership and professional expertise to restore its past sporting glory. According to him, institutional reforms and strategic governance are critical to improving performance standards and enhancing Nigeria's competitiveness on the global stage.
It is our desire as Senate Committee to give the President all the needed impetus, all the needed supports in order for us to move Nigerian sport to a greater height.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Narcotics, Senator Ibrahim Dankwambo, raised concerns over funding and technical capacity, particularly regarding collaboration between the proposed center and the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency.
From the recent data and statistics that we have had, use drugs, not only in sport, in criminality, even in politics.
Responding, Eloy disclosed that discussions were already underway with the NDLEA to leverage the agency's operational expertise and resources to support anti-doping enforcement and testing processes. The Senate Committee is expected to submit its report to the Chamber for further legislative consideration and confirmation proceedings. And that's the much we can take on this edition of the program. See you next week on the Parliament. And don't forget that Global TV is a house that takes the Parliament and is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. To stay connected, kindly follow us across all social media platforms using @Global TV NG. Thank you to my production team. I am Anieti Patrick. Bye for now.